When you're building an application of this capacity, of this size, one skill that you should gain, you should focus on is your ability to divide these bigger screens into smaller consumable chunks. You should be able to identify what is an independent piece of functionality and how it can be implemented using the smaller elements that HTML is providing us through the massive set of elements that they have. Once you identify that, you start creating smaller structures. Those are molecules, and then you start putting them together so that you're going to have a working functionality. Right? So this header here is a combination of multiple molecules, and then when they come together it becomes an organism. So we're going to put it together, we're going to put all these things together, and we're going to say that, hey, this is our header section. Probably there are more things that you can put here, like in a big size, my e-commerce platform, something like this, which is an H1 element. You can display it with your company branding on this side, and then this is going to become your header information that you're going to use throughout your site. When you identify this is where the chemistry terminology ends, and then you start with template. Now you can have different templates, and each template is going to have its own styling. Like when you open up an e-commerce site, just by looking at the structure of those things, just by looking at the basic template of the site, you are going to know that it is an e-commerce site. An e-commerce site is going to show you options like cart over here. It is going to represent the elements that you're purchasing. Some e-commerce site, they also show you a subtotal of how much money this transaction is going to cost you. They also show you a list of products or categories of products. So when you look at this basic structure of the document, you would understand that this is an e-commerce site. But then compare this with a newspaper. A newspaper is going to be a little different. They are going to be about different categories of information. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a big image of the newspaper here. You're going to see another image, which is the headline for the day. Right? There are going to be some people over here, and you're going to see some quick text that is going to fill this side of the screen. And then I would probably also put some other sections which are about, say, this is the sports section, this is the health section, for example, given the current scenario, and other elements. A general structure of a website that is created to communicate a specific type of information. The template is going to represent that. The template here appears more like something you want to communicate through this thing. Uh, Probably this could be a media, a YouTube video that is going to play around, and then this description here is going to be the comments of the author. It can also give you multiple buttons for, say, like, or if you disliked it, right? Your reactions, your emojis, they are going to appear over here, and then you can react to the content that is being presented because they want to collect feedback of the consumers of this news, the media that they're creating. So this template here and is going to represent an e-commerce site, and then this is going to represent probably a newspaper or a publishing site. This is going to be very similar for somebody who is a blog writer, for example. Make sense? The difference between a template and a page is that template is just a rough skeleton which only lays out that, hey, I want this section to be 200 pixel by 200 pixel, right? That is the maximum image that I can have. Probably I would want to put some product category, a product picture here, and a link to buy that particular product. But then once again, it is going to honor the dimensions. This is the hero image. This is the product that I'm going to highlight here. It is going to be 400 pixel by, because it is long, I'm going to say 960 pixels. And then somebody who wants to promote their media, they're going to have multiple images here, and then they scroll left and right. So this part here is the template. The difference between template and page is that page is going to have, I'm sorry, the difference between template and page is that page is going to have actual images. Does that make sense? So with this information, enough theory. Let's jump back into our coding example. I'm going to open up a newspaper here, uh, say Indian Express. I'm going to launch this link. Let's try and build this particular website in HTML as an exercise to understand how to put all these elements that we have studied so far together and come up with a similar looking website. So I'm going to attempt that. Let's create a new folder and call it newspaper. Now I am already seeing a couple of HTML files. A general rule of thumb is that the first page, the launching page, is called index.html because it is going to also have styling. I'm going to name it the same, index.css, and there is some JavaScript that I'm going to add, but I'm used to calling it app.js. We are not going to write the JavaScript right now, but then I'm just showing how I would generally start writing it. One of the Emmet tooltip One of the Emmet shortcut is that you hit exclamation, and when you hit tab, it is going to give you the boilerplate HTML code. And it is also going to highlight a couple of things like this device width here. It is highlighted. If I want to create my website for a specific width, this is the place where I would specify that. I'm going to ignore that right now, and I'm going to hit tab. Once I hit tab, I move from this device width to the initial scaling of the application. When I hit it again, I'm in the tab window, and I'm going to call it my newspaper. I'm going to hit save. Now let me start the live server, and as soon as I start this, it is going to launch it in some browser window. Alright, so my newspaper is here. Because I don't have anything in the body, it is not going to appear over here, but let's go ahead and start creating that. I'm going to separate this out with the newspaper. What I want is, so to create the template, I know that this is the navigation bar. I know that this is the header or the branding bar. This is another form of navigation bar. This is marquee text, and this is the main section of the newspaper. So let's just go ahead and start putting those things together. I'm going to start with a header. I'm going to hit tab. Inside the header, I would want, say, a nav link with 5 different languages appearing in 5 different font. So I'm going to pick those, and for picking those up, I'm going to use my old trick, Bootstrap for cheat sheet. And on this page, I'm going to look for the header section. So header is generally in the navigation. I was looking at the wrong place. And I'm going to pick up a template. This is fine, but then I want something that is in the center. So this looks like a better match. I'm just going to come here, copy this, and paste it inside the header. When I hit save and go to my website, it is not picking up the theme because at the moment I have not associated any Bootstrap CSS with it. So I'm going to do that next. Bootstrap for CDN link. The first result is going to take me to Bootstrap documentation page. I'm going to copy this and add it to my head section. Remember from the whiteboard discussion that all the linking, all the CSS that you would want to do, you would want to put them in the blue section inside the head part. So it is the metadata and scripting content. One exception to this rule is scripting. Scripting, sometimes you would want to put in the body section right under when all the elements have been created. So moving back to this template, so we have the CSS attached. Now if we go and look at our website, it is kind of taking shape. I'm going to add a couple more links here. Shift Alt and down arrow is going to copy it for you, and I'm going to change active to say English. Now I don't have different fonts, but then I can put say Hindi, Marathi, probably say Telugu and Tamil. And now when I come here, my header bar is ready. What I also understand from my understanding of Bootstrap and the cheat sheet here, that there are better ways of having a darker background. So if I want to make it dark, I can come to this section and make bg-dark, or probably because this is some form of navigation, notice that this has turned dark. Because this is some form of navigation, I can also add it to a nav section, right? But then nav is okay, something is wrong. Okay, but the nav is something that I would reserve for the main navigation of the website. Like the main navigation of this website for me is this particular section here. So I'm not going to use nav there. I'm just going to use that thing as a link for this thing. And then now that it looks like the background is light, I'm going to probably switch from BG dark to BG light, or light. Yeah, and then it is going to have a light touch to it. You see that? Now the next section of this header is a branding section where you would want to put a big logo of this thing. So I'm going to create a container, and then notice how the div has started coming in picture. Because there are multiple elements that I see on this side, the company image, then a date, and say follow us, and some social media icons here. I'm going to have to put that thing inside a row. So I'm going to create a row. Inside this row, I'm going to create uh, at least three parts to it, and then I don't know how to create those three parts, so I'm once again going to fall back to the cheat sheet. I'm going to start looking for some matching elements that would give me that option. So to do that, I'm going to look at grid, and then inside grid, right, this looks like a better match where I have a container and a row and three columns. So I'm going to pick up these three columns, just going to come and make them sit here. And then probably I don't want small columns, so I'm just going to get rid of these. I'm okay with putting column hyphen LG, and instead of one of three, I'm going to put another stack of two elements over here, one for the image and one for the text under it. But then the image can be actually this image here. I'm going to open it in a new tab, copy this link, and over here I'm going to put image, and src is this, and I'm going to say Indian Express. Now if I come to the site that I'm creating, I see one of three here, Indian Express here, and one of three over here. Now right under this, I want to insert a text box. To do that, I'm going to say insert a span tag, and I'm going to mention what do they have on the site, date. And this is where you can start getting fancy. And okay, forget it. And the date is appearing over here, but then it is not kind of centered along with other text. And this is where I'm going to add another div with uh, with a class which is for justifying content to center. I think the class name is justify content center, but I could be wrong. So I'm going to have to go and look that thing up. Once again, come back to our cheat sheet. Once again, come back to our cheat sheet, and I'm going to search for justify. Navigation justify content. This is coming in the center. Justify content center is the class name. Justify content center. If I save this and come over here, this is not coming in the center. There are other ways, there are other elements inside this section that can add you specifying and margin on the left and right. Let me go ahead and try an example of that. Okay, you know what? Let's just move on and let's start working on the other sections. Under this, I would want to add the main navigation of my application. And for main navigation, this time around, I'm not going to use the cheat sheet. Instead, I'm going to rely on the Bootstrap section. I'm going to search for navbar, and inside navbar, I'm going to look for an appropriate matching section. So we know that there is a search section. There are a couple of links, and there is also a breadcrumb that appears on the left-hand side. So I'm looking for that matching pattern, which is the closest. So there is a form element, there is input. I don't want any of this. Yes, this one looks a little better, right? This black one here. So I'm going to go pick this navbar content. Alright, so I'll have to pick up two things. One is this navbar because it has a dark background. So this is going to be one element that I'm going to add to my solution. And then notice that they are all still part of the header. So this is going to give me a dark navbar, and I'm going to scroll up and pick up this text here, but just the nav part. I'm not going to take that. I'm going to hit the copy button, come over here and paste it like so. You see nav is like duplicated now. I'm going to delete the one that is inside, because it has lighter theme. I want the darker theme. And when I hit save, my navigation is coming together. Now there are links that I might have to insert, but there is a breadcrumb nice icon that I see, and there's a nav bar. Now let me point you to another resource on the cheat sheet which is related to ordering of element. Order. Alright, so do you see this? Now look at this example. It is saying that it is the first flex item, second flex item, and third flex item. But then notice the order in which they are appearing inside this demo or preview window. In the preview window, the third flex item is appearing first. It is because of this particular class, order 3. So we're going to attempt and apply this to our styling as well. Form input. If you search through these things, hopefully order 1, I'm going to put that here, and let's see if that has changed anything. I'm pretty positive that if you apply it at the right spot, it is going to make the elements jump together in different directions. But then now that I've showed you the basic of this navigation, I'm going to move on to the next section, and we're going to stop our exercise there. The next section is the actual main section here. This is where we are going to, for the first time, come out of our header part, and we're going to begin with the main thing. Now, what we see here, what we see on the on the website is that it has a marquee text, which is probably for advertisement. You can probably pause it, play it, different buttons of that, sorry, different buttons with different actions. They are playing along here. And then there is the main heading section, and there is some text over here, and there are a couple of images. So let's go ahead and create that section. And to do that, we're going to, this time, we're going to create a container. Inside the container, I see at least 2 rows. So I'm going to hit 2 here, and it's going to give me this first section. Over here, I'm going to fall back to my Bootstrap cheat sheet and look for a row with some marquee text. It's not a nav bar, it's not pagination, it's not badges, breadcrumb, buttons. It is simple uh, text element with some information in it. So I'm looking for carousel. Let me see what this is. So this is like pretty big. I don't want this size. I want something smaller. But then notice it has a similar effect of rolling the content. So this looks like a good beginning point. Just that I might have to play around with its dimensions. I'm going to copy it anyway and make it part of my HTML. Alright, this is pretty big. If I play around enough, I'll be able to center this image and change the dimensions of this, and then we have our first batch of elements that will be working. For the next part of the screen, I'm going to go to this second row. Over here, if I compare it with this section, I see like 8 columns on the left side, or probably 9 columns on the left side, and 3 columns on the right side. So for that, we are going to create 2 divs. One is call-lg-9, and right under this, we're going to create another section which is called lg3. Now these two numbers, they must add up, and at least maximum should be 12. It should not be more than that, otherwise your content is going to roll down to the next row. You don't want that. Inside the first section, we have at least 2 elements to it. There is 1 row, and I would say there are 2 rows. In the first row, we have a big image, and in that image itself is, let me go ahead and close this, and that image is probably this news article. So I'm going to right click, open this image, new tab, copy the link, and paste it here. The alternate text is once again good for the screen readers. I'm going to call it hospital room picture. And now if I come to this section, notice that they have kind of stuck together and there's no margin. There's a trick for adding margin to all our elements, and that trick is inside the cheat sheet. Once again, there is a section called spacing. If you want vertical spacing, pick something with Y. If you want horizontal spacing, pick something with an X in it. MR is for margin. If you want to get things in the center, you can use MR, and it is going to uh, add margin on the right. This is going to add margin probably on both sides. So I'm going to, because I want vertical margin, I'm going to go with the smallest, py-1, and I'm going to apply it on all the rows that are there in my document. But then for selecting all the elements, there's a quick tip, there's a quick short key. It is Control Shift and L. Once I do that, notice that there's a cursor blinking on the search pattern that matched. So here's what I did. I selected the text that I wanted to search, and I hit Control Shift and L. This key combination is going to highlight, like a quick search, all the rows that I have in my entire document, and they are also appearing here inside Visual Studio Code in the scroll bar. What I want to do next is I want to hit the right key so that I don't change selection, and then type py-1. Notice that it is getting typed on multiple lines at the same time. Let's hit save, come back to our site, and notice how they have separated a bit. If you want more space, you can come and type py-2, and that is going to space them even further. Looks a little cleaner this time, right? Now what we need is we need some text in this 3-column section, and then we need 3 more images in the column below. For that, we're going to come back to our newspaper article once again, and we're going to open this image. Now this image is the smaller image, and that's why I am not using the same old link. But then we need 3 images separated in the middle. Once again, to create sections that are separated in the middle, I'm going to search for something similar to cards. These cards here. Let's see what these cards have for us. So there is a card section. Um, Card with title, card text, card length, card image top. Yes, this one looks a little better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this section, come back to our HTML, and then this was the first row inside it. I'm going to add another row. I'm going to add, okay, so I'm so sorry, I did not see this. I already had a row here. Over here, I'm going to paste that text that we copied from the section, and I'm going to replace this p tag with an image. So let's go ahead and select and delete all these p tags. Gone. And now I'm going to add under H4, we're going to add our image. In fact, for that matter, I don't need an H4. Just going to copy that image. Going to come back to our newspaper article, copy this image link, and paste that image link over here. I don't know what that image was. I'm going to call it once again hospital picture. And under this, we have a quick text. Now I don't know what that text is, but then it is not more than 10 words. So I'm going to hit lorem, and it is going to generate some default text for me. I'm going to copy this image. Instead of H4, I'm going to have that image. Over here, I'm going to have another P section with lorem 10. Typing done. And once again, I'm going to, under this H4 section, instead of this H4, I'm going to have an image. And under the image, I have a P tag with another lorem 10 text. When I save this and go back to the solution that we're building, right, this is our site. So our site has started coming together, and in these images they have kind of extended outside this row, these 3 columns, but we're going to fix that real quick. Let's come back here. Let's go to these 3 columns over here. Because this is text related information, this time I'm not going to use div, I'm going to use section. Now section generally recommend that you have some heading over here. So over here I'm going to create a 3-word heading, and under these 3-letter heading I'm going to create a 50-letter or 100-letter paragraph. So a lorem of 100 letters, and it is going to give me a paragraph section. So because it was text, I decided to go with section, use an h3 and use a p tag, generate this random text so that I don't get distracted by the English and start reading it. And when I come to this page, now I have some text, and then this thing is not taking entire effect. But then notice that we are very close to what was expected from us over here. Now notice how this header kind of tucks at the top. That can be done if we apply another navigation section tip, which is drop down nav justify flex content tab is okay, probably not present here, but if we want it to have some align top, there is an element that you will find over here. If you apply that class to it, it is okay, fixed top. There you go. If I apply this property, it is going to take effect right away, but let me anyway go ahead and try that. So I'm inside the header section once again, and this is the navigation that we were working on. Collapse navbar, and I'm going to add another class here called fixed top. I'm not sure if it is going to work. Not here. I'm going to apply it to this navbar. And when I do that, my navigation has kind of stuck to the top. And this is another case where JavaScript is going to make sense. If we write enough JavaScript based on the cursor location, we can select this navbar and we can apply this fixed top when somebody is scrolling a lot and then have scrolled for at least say 100 pixels, and that's when it is going to get stuck. So notice how Indian Express website, after a bit of scroll, after scrolling for say 100 200 pixel, it kind of stuck. We're going to apply that class to that particular nav element dynamically using JavaScript, and that is when the navigation is going to stick to the top. And that is another reason I do not want to have this thing as the nav under nav section. I let it be under UL and LI, but then this is the actual nav section. So I use nav for where I would want to give navigation level experience to my users. Okay, so I'm not as neat as the Indian Express, but then this demo that we have created, it is a good starting point for uh, a template or pages that we would want to wireframe and showcase it to somebody for the work that is in progress.